This is Beer in Front, part of the Beer Media Group. Every week I'll talk to people in and around the beer world and get their stories all about beer. That's Beer in Front, and it's coming up now. Welcome to episode 249 of Beer in Front. I'm your host, Dave Zalatoris, and Beer in Front is a charter member of the Beer Media Group. Solo show this week, I'm going to be talking about the history of the Coozie, so stay tuned for that. If you didn't get a chance, please check out last week's show, a joint effort between Rod J of Rod J's Beer Ventures and we discussed tariffs and beer, how that might affect you as a consumer, how it's going to affect breweries, and plenty of others. So it was a really cool project. We had a ton of guests on. You could check it out on my YouTube feed, Rod J's YouTube feed, and you could also check out the audio podcast where you're listening to this, and also on Rod J's podcast feed. So please check that out if you have some time. We thought that was a lot of fun, a lot of good information shared there. Last week, there was a THC beverage symposium, if you will, held by the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild, and I attended, and this was really fascinating to learn a lot about the process on how they make the THC seltzers. So I have a couple feelers out. Hopefully I'm going to get a representative from a brewery on in the near future, and we'll talk about their line of THC beverages, how they're doing, if they're selling well, if that's the next big thing in craft beverages. So I hope to have that for you out in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, keep my fingers crossed here. On Saturday, April 12th, get this for a festival. It's the Dairy State Cheese and Beer Festival. It's going to be held at the world-famous Brat Stop in Kenosha. I talked earlier today to Jason from the Boys and Girls Clubs of Kenosha. All the proceeds from this festival go towards the Boys and Girls Club there, so that was really cool. I'm going to have that episode out right before the festival, so keep an eye out for that. That should be coming out in about 3 weeks or so. But no, it was a lot of fun learning about the festival and the Boys and Girls Club in Kenosha, so definitely keep an eye or an ear out for that. And finally, do you remember a couple weeks ago when I had on Jason from Living the Dream Brewery, and we were talking about Colorado Pint Day? Well, the postman dropped off my glass, and it is just as spectacular in person as it was from looking at the pictures. I see now the glass for Illinois, and Illinois is a good one too, but I'll definitely be reciprocating and sending the Illinois glass out to Colorado. In beer and beverage news, Odell Brewing in Colorado, which is a great place to take a tour. I've done it, and it's spectacular. They've come out with this really cool-looking 90 shilling coin. If you go to any of their tap rooms, buy the coin for $20. It gets you a pint of the 90 shilling. You get to keep the coin, and then if you show the coin at any of the Odell tap rooms, you get $5 pints and 90 shillings. So if you're in that area, you got to grab one of those commemorative 90 shilling coins from Odell. Most of the beer and beverage news that's been around the last couple of weeks have been tariffs and what's going on with all of that. Well, Moosehead, which I couldn't tell you the last time I had a Moosehead, but it's still made in Canada. It's their last major brewery with Canadian ownership. They've released a 1,461 beer pack. Now, this is a beer for every day of the new president's term. So they've sold 10 of them so far. With the conversion right now, it's $1,718. I don't know how you're going to get that across the border, or I don't know how good that last can's going to be in 3.5, almost 4 years, but if you want 1,461 cans of Moosehead, you could pick it up. Gordon Biersch and Rock Bottom, they're now going to add lagers from the macro beers to their menus. So if people come in and ask, you have something that tastes like a Budweiser, I guess they could just pull out a Budweiser for you now. That was one of the strangest things I've seen. I was not expecting to see that in my news feed, but Gordon Biersch and Rock Bottom are going to start having domestic lagers. Hope you enjoyed all that Guinness over the St. Patrick's Day weekend, because don't think the tariffs are just Mexico and Canada. There's a possibility of a 200% alcohol tax on imports from the European Union. So that pint of Guinness is going to go up big if this goes through. If you've bought 4 packs of craft beer in the last, 8 or 10 years, you've probably had them come in a PackTech carrier. Those, from what I understand, they're hard to recycle, and I know a lot of breweries have like recycling bins just for the PackTech carriers, but there's a new company out there. It's called Roberts Poly Pro. They're going to have something at the Craft Brewers Conference in Indianapolis. Now, their carriers have 50% less plastic, cost up to 25% less, and from what I'm reading on the press release, like these are 100% biodegradable. So this might be something that we see more of in the craft beer world, are 4-packs and 6-packs coming in these type of carriers, which would be cool. Beatbox is an alcoholic beverage that I saw it at the grocery store, and frankly, I thought it was like a juice box, because that's what they look like. I mean, it looks just like a kiddie's jukebox. It's there in the alcohol shelf of your grocery stores. They're teaming up with Shaquille O'Neal to have a blueberry lemonade, but this thing's like 11%. I don't know, but if you want like a boozy jukebox, you could pick up this 11% Beatbox at your local grocery store. You know the Biscoff cookies that you get on your airplane for a reputable airline? Well, Dewclaw Brewing in New Jersey, they're coming out with, it's called the Pastryarchy. This is an imperial brown ale that I guess is supposed to taste like those delicious cookies. Checks in at 8.5%. Trader Joe's, now they have, it's not Biscoff, but they call it like their cookie butter, and it's like a peanut butter made with these type of cookies, and it's delicious. And I'll tell you right now, I'll kill me a jug of the cookie butter. But they had a cookie butter beer, and if I remember right, it was but I will have to try this from Dewclaw, the Pastryarchy, if this comes across in my travels. So if you're in the New Jersey area, you like Biscoff cookies, you got to check this one out. Deschutes, they're coming out with their Black Butte Porter 37. So the 37th anniversary of the iconic Black Butte Porter. This is going to be tequila barrel aged. So sign me up for that. This sounds really good. According to the label that I've seen, this is drawing inspiration from tequila and orange truffle, blending rich chocolate, citrusy, orange peel, and a hint of spiciness. I don't know. This looks really good. I'll have to check it out. Milk sugar. Deschutes, what's with the milk sugar? All right, looks like I'm taking a pill before I drink. The Black Butte 37 Tequila Barrel-Aged Imperial Porter. The Illinois Craft Brewers Guild announced details about Craft Beer Week. This year it's going to be between May 9th and the 16th, all across the great state of Illinois. Beer Under Glass is going to return on Friday, May 9th. New location this year at the Harris Theater Rooftop in Chicago at Millennium Park. That should be cool. The summer passport's going to be there where you could drink at all these great breweries in Illinois, stamp your passport, win some cool stuff. The glass is awesome that's coming out, so I can't wait to grab the 2025 Illinois Craft Beer Week glass. That looks cool. For more information, you could head over to illinoisbeer.org. The Coozie. Whether you spell it with a C or a K, you know what I'm referring to. I want you to hit pause on this show right now. Check your junk drawer, and I'm going to bet you have at least one in there. If you're a clown like me, you have plenty. I never use them. I even had some made for the podcast. I have like 11 left if you need any more. If there's a brewery giving one away at a festival, my dumbass is in that line like I'm waiting for Taylor Swift tickets. If there's a specialist out there that specializes in Coozie addiction, I hope she takes Blue Cross. There are a few origin stories out there on the Coozie. Which one is true? I'll leave that for the True Story and True Crime podcasts to decipher. One story is it was inspired by a centuries-old English tradition of knitting teapot covers, so that would help keep their Earl Grey warm and cozy. One has them introduced back in the 70s in Australia, where surfers adopted them as part of their culture. They were known as stubby holders due to the shorter, wider shape of the beer bottles there. In 1980, the Radio Cap Corporation, or RCC, which at the time was known more for baseball hats, they trademarked the name Coozie with a K for a cylindrical apparatus made of foam. If you were a child of the 70s and 80s, you remember the foam from a trucker hat? That was the original foam for the Coozie. In 1981, a woman named Bonnie McGow filed a patent for an insulated drink, Coozie, with goose down sandwiched between two outer layers of fabric. Bonnie, I'm sure you are or were a lovely person, but my junk drawer wouldn't have room for some goose down. Now, the RCC version won out, and by the 90s, neoprene became the insulator of choice for the Coozie. Over the years, the Radio Cap Corporation has been bought and sold, and currently, your Bic lighter and pen company is the rights holder to the Coozie name. Now, that's Koozie in all capital letters, so they own that right. One of the companies who owned it, Norwood Promotional Products, they let the copyright expire on the Coozie name back in 2001. There have been copyright fights since then, but the name Coozie is almost like Band-Aid or Kleenex. It's generic for the product itself. No one, when getting a paper cut, asks for a cure ad. You ask for a Band-Aid. So it's the same thing with Coozie. No one's going to ask, oh, hey, could you toss me a neoprene cylindrical apparatus designed for keeping your beverages cool on a hot day? You ask for a Coozie. That brings us up to today. There are hundreds of companies here and abroad making these things. In addition, you have companies like Yeti and RTIC and many others where you could find at pretty much every store making high-end stainless steel versions for around $25. And I'm not knocking RTIC and Yeti. I have their products and they work well. I just don't have this boozy, fancy version of a Coozie. But now I talked to Dr. Barry Hummel from the Pops on Hops podcast. I put a thing out on social media, and he says he has the Yetis, loves them, and he notices that he doesn't drink the beer as fast because he lives in Florida. It's hot, so you're not chugging down the beer. So I guess there is a good reason, if you live in a warm weather climate, for having the stainless steel version of this. But like and I went down this huge rabbit hole, even like the Yeti water bottles, and I use them, but they say, oh, it'll keep your water cold for like 36 hours. How long does it take you to drink a bottle of water that you need it to stay cold for, a day? But I don't know. Now, one thing that I have used is they have like a Coozie for a growler. It's a neoprene thing that, fits over your glass growler. I have used those before, but, that helps. It's, 64 ounces of beer, and you want to keep that a little cooler, especially if you're outside. Breweries make koozies because they're an inexpensive form of branding. You could be drinking a macro, but your koozie says craft. And I know what these cost to make, because I looked into it. It's a lot cheaper than the $4 or $5 you paid for it. My question to you, do you use koozies? I'm in an urban area next to the greatest lake of all, Lake Moira. Hey, if we're going to name the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, I'm renaming Lake Michigan after my dog. So, I'll sit outside in the summer, but it's not like I'm outside all the time like you might be in a warm climate like Florida with a ton of beaches, or California or Arizona. So I want to know, if you use koozies all the time, please let me know. All right, the beer that's in front of me now comes courtesy of my cousin Brian and his wife Laura. They dropped off some beers from the Huntsville, Alabama area. I'm going to have T-. This is a tangerine Kolsch made by Yellowhammer Brewing in Huntsville. I love the can art on this. They had Rocket City. I like how you need to see the can, how it says that, 10 IBUs, and that's in like the state of Alabama. It gives you like how hoppy it is, how malty it is. So I think this is excellent artwork and info on the can, and I'm hoping it tastes as good as the can art. So let's give it a try. The T- Tangerine Kolsch, beautiful light color, good foam. As I was pouring it, that tangerine hit me right up front. Really good aroma here. Yeah, that smells very nice. Huge notes of the tangerine. That's good. The fruit notes hit me there. Nice finish from the Kolsch. Wow, this is fantastic right here. I need to have some more of this. Yeah, I'm almost getting like some cereal notes out of the taste. I think this is really good. So if you're in the Huntsville area and you see anything from Yellowhammer, especially the T- Tangerine Kolsch, need to throw this one in the cart. Laura, Brian, thank you for hooking me up. All right, that's going to wrap things up for this edition of Beer in Front. I thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/beerinfront for more information. Have a great week, everyone. I'll talk to you next week. And remember, sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet.